This
What kind of
conference will now be recorded.
I'm not sure what kind of corona you're talking about, but COVID-19, I'm sure. Jason, no worries. It happens.
Okay, very good. The only one who'll be mad is Linda.
Yeah,
Well,
that is correct.
I do have a
She
question.
has to do
John, go ahead.
Who will, how would we be putting together the minutes? Is it done from the recording or is somebody taking notes?
I've been taking notes,
Okay.
so I can do the front end.
And the reason, if I can have a minute, I was contacted by Jacqueline Doherty. She said she's replacing Dwayne Trueheart as Athol's commissioner. And just before the meeting, she had said that she was giving someone a ride. They needed some medical help and she was helping them out. And she might be entering this meeting late. And I said, that's not a problem. And that we would provide her with the minutes, because she said, well, how do I see what I've missed? And I said, you know, that we assemble minutes and it discusses everything, well, it lists everything that was discussed. So I wanted to make sure she was included in that. She must appear on yours. I don't know why she contacted me. Maybe she saw it said vice chair. So I don't know. But I reassured her that we would get that information to her and to feel free to come into this meeting at any time if she got an opportunity. That was it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, John.
Certainly.
Okay, very good. If you have no other comments, Glenn, I think you have 4.2 as your next item on the agenda.
Yes, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4. They should go a bit faster. But I do want to note that Brad did send out in the chat function something to everybody. He said, we have some info on ADA plans for communities. I don't recall off the top of my head, George Snow contacted the communities. So I think that was directed to Laura's question. So Brad, thanks for chiming in. And I'll circle around to George Snow and maybe we can trade some notes and we'll get that list going. Thank you, Brad. All right, 4.2, compensation plan. So the last time we did a compensation plan, I think it was about 8 years ago. So we hired a consultant late last calendar year. Compensation and HR group, James Gray, is the principal, and James did the work for us. He looked at all of our job descriptions. Basically what we wanted to do, what we needed to know was, are we paying people at the market rate? What is the market rate? We don't have the internal capacity to do an in-depth study like this, but there are several consultants throughout New England that do this, 8 to 12 hours a day. So they live and breathe and eat this stuff. So CHRG, we engaged last year. This is their final report. There are some tables in here. The total report, what you're seeing on the screen is, okay, right now that's the whole report. And we can send that out. That's not a problem. I'm not sure if it's on the website or not, but we can send that out to the commissioners so they can see it. In my narrative, whenever Jason puts that back on the screen, no worries, whenever, I've got a summary of the report. I basically trying to give you some key takeaways tonight. So on what you're seeing now is basically just a snip of their header on their letterhead. Based upon Jim's analysis, he recommended following minimum and maximum pay ranges for each position. So before we get to the table on the following page, there are a few bullets here, a few takeaways. In FY20, MRPC was paying a couple of employees in the transportation department annual salaries that were below the minimum amount. This was corrected when we did the 21 budget update in June. Most employees are paid at minimum and mid ranges. You'll see that in the table in a moment or two. There's a minimum range, a mid range, and then a maximum range. So most of our people are in the mid and mid ranges. New entry-level employees are paid at the minimum grade, range of grade 15, and we've had difficulty keeping entry-level planners due to low compensation. We always knew that internally, but this quantifies the issue. I should go back to the first bullet. There is another position that's also out of sync, very much so, and we need to bring that person up too. That's the person that works for Jason and GIS. low compensation. We do the entry level stuff. We take in regional planners at around $45,000, $46,000, $47,000 a year, and they stay for 6, 12 months, 18. And some stay and then they grow in the organization. Some don't. That's life, honestly. However, we are having difficulty retaining at the bottom. The intern rate, and this means a lot. With all due respect to Brad's department of transportation, in a normal year, which this isn't one, we typically hire a couple traffic technicians. And I believe, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe our current intern rate's about $13 an hour. And I'm not sure, but anyway, this report said it should be around $14.36 an hour. Some of the RPAs in the state have gone beyond the 13. They're in the 14, 15 range. Brad and I have touched on this the last few years. Now we have a quantification. Now we have a third-party report that says this is what it should be about. So we're a little low on that intern rate also. If
Sorry, Glenn.
Yes, please, Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, we did use $13 an hour in past years. This year, before all this pandemic hit, we had talked about going up to $14.25 in anticipation of minimum wage going up in Massachusetts.
Right.
So that's what we were looking at, but obviously we have it higher than that rate. So I think going forward, we'll at least be at $14.25, which is the minimum wage. It's going to be at not in 2021, but in 2022.
Right. So that's what we should do to comply with the law. And, you know, Brad, I may not remember to take a note, but we need to increase the intern rate to make it equal to the mass minimum wage. And I think we need to do that as a resolution at the next meeting. Maybe the resolution will be, you know, we'll always be at the mass rate, and like we did with the IRS business travel rate in the past. So we'll work together and work on something for the commissioners for September 3rd. Okay. Thanks for chiming in.
Yep.
The page, the next page, page 3, if Jason would go down a little bit. So that's the table I was referring to. We have grades, 10 up to 23. You have a column, a recommended range, minimums, mids, and maximums. And obviously all this is depending upon funding. You try to get people at least to minimum, if not to mid. We're not the private sector, so you know we don't typically pay at max, but we need to have a path for people. And that's what a part of this is about. These minimums, mids, and maxes right now. So these are going to go into the job description. So that's my job. By policy, the executive director has to prepare job descriptions. And now that I have data, which I've been looking forward to for so long, I can now have salary bands. I can have a pay range. I can say on a job description when we're hiring, the minimum, the entry level is, you know, $3 an hour, and the maximum you'll ever learn is $10 an hour. But each of these positions should have that job title, min max, and then roles, duties, responsibilities. So I'll be working on that over the next month. Below the table, Mr. Gray indicated that if an employee is currently earning a salary that's within 5 to 10% of the comp out ratio, which is in the top of that table, or another table actually below, hang on just a second. That's in the next table coming up, that they're pretty much paid within the market rate. If you're beyond the 10%, too high or beyond the 10% too low, then things are out of kilter, if you will. However, this doesn't account for additional duties. This is just one factor that we use when we look at what do you pay someone. So I have 5 bullets there. I looked at all the positions, and basically in item number 1, people paid within 5% are those 3 titles. 2, people paid within 10% are those several titles. People paid within 15%, so now we're starting to get out of kilter, are within those 3 titles. So I have to look at that variable along with many other variables, performance and job duties and functions and so on and so forth. And then it gets a little scary when you have people that, you know, when you're at 20%, you know, you're at 80% of the 100%, meaning what you're paid at the median at market rate. So it has those titles there. And then this is the title that concerns me, is that the GIS analysis is way out of whack at 25%. And I've got to address this. I emailed Jason on this when I reread the report today and realized, wow, that's an outlier. We really got to take care of that. The data that we're referring to is, Jason, if you want to pan down a little bit, these percentages come out of this table below from the consultant's report. So you can see where I got the summary from above. The takeaway item, the executive director will amend all job descriptions that were subject to this report to include minimums and maximum pay ranges, which I just talked about. So we'll be better able to understand people's highest earning potential subsequent to consistently delivering superior services to MRPC's clients and fulfilling all roles and responsibilities of their respective job descriptions. So that's what's going on. This is a report. This is the official report of the compensation study. This ends my summary of the study. If people want the study and digest it, happy to send this out to you. That's not a problem. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, Glenn. So actually, as I see, this is probably attached to your first presentation in regards to budget update and corrections. So you'll be sending that out along with, and will we be able to get an idea on this by looking at that spreadsheet that you gave it of people's salaries when we
Yes.
compare this to that? So
Exactly. You could look at Jim Gray's report and you can look at that salary table, table E in the budget, and you'd be able to figure out who's who, the titles, the names are there, and everything like that.
okay,
Yes, sir.
very good. So give us a good idea. Do I have any questions in regards to this part of Glenn's presentation? If not, do you want to move on to 4.3?
Love to, and wrap this up because we want to do other stuff. So 4.3, orientations for commissioners. So I want to thank the commissioners that I did send out emails thanking them for participating in this room. I know that Guy participated, Laura participated, Roger participated, some staff participated. George came into the room for one. Is that Jim in Lunenburg? There he is. So Jim, former police chief, 2 weeks ago, he said he got elected to the Board of Selectmen. Jim, I believe you're an alternate now from Lunenburg to the MRPC. Did I state that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, very good. Jim, welcome to your first meeting of the Planning Commission, and thanks again for attending that orientation session. I hope it was helpful.
It was.
So I want to thank all the commissioners that attended. Roger, were you in on one of those? You were in by phone, so I want to give you credit as well.
Yes,
I just realized that.
Yes, I was in on one of them. Yes, the last one.
Okay, very good, very good. So thank you all. I don't mind doing that twice a year or quarterly. If people would like to chime in and email me, you need to do this X amount of times a year, Glenn, then I will do it. It was fun. We had great discussions, especially at the first meeting where some of the staff, Karen Chapman and Holly Ford, were there, and we actually had a mini staff meeting at the end, and the commissioners didn't leave, the 2 or 3 that were with us, and I think we all got something out of that. Mr. Chairman, I'm done with 4.3, and when you want me to go to 4.4, I will.
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. So 4.4, strategic planning process. So I understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it sounds like a crazy time to start a strategic planning process. All I'm doing tonight is planting the seeds with the commissioners and making our colleagues here, our staff at the MRPC, aware that we need to do this. We need to understand what we want to do for the next 5 years. I think it's actually critical that we do this now, especially with the worldwide pandemic and the international, national, regional, and local economies being the way that they are. Bluntly, we don't have to do this. This is not a requirement of a regional planning commission. We have statutory authority to do a certain number of things through the regional planning law, general laws of Massachusetts, chapter 40B, sections 1 through 8. And within one of those subsections, there's a 14 and then a bunch of subsections to that, A through O. And A through O, that's your powers and duties, and those are your roles and responsibilities. But we're the only regional planning commission in the Commonwealth of the 13 RPAs that has a private nonprofit community development corporation, a CDC, as an affiliate. So we're a very unique animal. Tied to that also is, I'm not going to say anything about any other staff person, only me, but if you see this, there was more here 20 years ago. And I'm getting of a certain age, some of us are getting of a certain age, where we will transition to the next phase of our lives. Some will call it fun, some will call it retirement, some will maybe in their 50s stay here till their 70s or 80s, and that's perfectly fine. But an entity has to grow, people have to grow, things change, and I think we need to be prepared for that change. So I'm basically recommending that we go through a process. I'm planting the seed tonight in these 6 bullets that we identify a mission, we identify priorities for both organizations, we build a communication or rollout plan, we hold people accountable, the staff, the MEC board of directors, the commissioners, we all work together to stick to that plan, whatever it is. We review and update as needed within 3 years or so. Document a succession plan. Number 6, document a succession planning process for new leadership, commissioners, executive director, and most, if not all the department heads for future implementation. We're all going to go through individual and corporate transitions here. So I think we just need to be prepared. It's about a planning agency writing a plan for its future, as opposed to writing plans for everybody else all the time. We need to do something here. This will be a little challenging in GoToMeeting. This can take 6 months or 2 years. I would ask the commissioners to help me drive the process, but I think we really need to start this. Again, I'm just planting seeds. At the MEC annual board of directors meeting that we'll hold by September 30, I'll bring the same information. I'll just copy this and I'll bring it to them. And several of the people in here are on the MEC board of directors by bylaw anyway. And Jason, if you would go back to the 4.4, the narrative that I had, my memo. The last thing I just want to make sure people are aware of before I have to do additional updates. So I give examples of some
What
of the,
document was that?
my memo to the commissioners for this evening, the one that you had up.
Oh, hold on, let me get it. I think I closed it.
No worries. The bottom line is that I give you examples of other plans. I read a few of them, not all of them. Feel free to Google yourself and go out. Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of additional updates, which many I've already covered, but I just want to go through them really quickly. I mentioned the $400,000 grant. I'm on the bottom of page 5, Jay, just so you're aware. And we're rounding third. We're on the way to home. So we have a $400,000 grant award. We're going to hire staff. We received 18 applications. I reviewed them all before the meeting. We're going to start interviews next week. We have a couple of strong candidates and a couple of others who are decent. So film at 11. Stay tuned. Additional staffing needs. Remember, I mentioned earlier that the money and the human resources aren't in balance, so we need to fill the gap there. So I have to talk to Linda, our HR director, next week when she gets back from her well-deserved vacation about hiring for maybe a part-time planner. We need some horsepower. We need more people in the engine room. Surveys at the very end of the report. I think I'm on the bottom of page 6 or in the middle. I was asked by one planner in Sterling, Dominica Tadashori, if I'd be willing to send out a survey to commissioners about day versus night meetings for the commission meetings during the pandemic to relieve you of an evening meeting. So unless somebody objects strenuously, I'm just going to send out a simple Survey Monkey survey with a link that says we meet the first Thursday of every month. I think we settled on that a while ago, and I'm just going to have a couple open-ended questions. Does this still work for you? Do other days work for you? By the way, during the pandemic, would you prefer this at day or night? What times work best for you? So I'm going to have it just pretty broad, a lot of options for people to choose, just as a litmus test, just to test the waters and see how people think. It's always good to maybe revisit this maybe every couple of years, especially now. The last thing in Westminster, ironically, I was developing the Survey Monkey survey a couple of days ago, and the Westminster Police Chief emailed me a couple of days ago. And he asked if I could do a Survey Monkey survey for the Westminster residents concerning a location of a future facility. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Director. Does anybody have any questions of Glenn on anything that he has spoken to in his report? Not hearing any. We'll move on to the next phase of our meeting, which is the status reports. For those that have not been to a meeting, what we usually do is you probably have received the contact status reports. What I do is that we go through, we read each heading. If you have any questions or have anything you want to speak to, please speak up. I'll pause between each things, but this part seems to go pretty quickly, and I don't think we don't have any motions on this tonight, if I looks through this. So I think we should be pretty good on this. So if no other questions, I'll start on the what you see in front of you here.
Excuse me, Guy. I
Yes.
actually have a question.
Shoot.
And it's directed towards Glenn. Last time we talked, you were going to start using the office, a couple people here and there. How is that going? And is there any thought to expanding?
So what we have right now, John, and for everyone's knowledge, is the building, the MRPC leased space within the structure of the Doyle Center. We don't allow the general public in unless it's by appointment, unless someone needs to talk to us, like you know, a client or have a meeting here. That hasn't happened to my knowledge. Nobody's really looking to go to office buildings right now. We have, let's see, I believe it was June 8th when the businesses could open, the office spaces could open. So we have 14 employees, 7 are allowed to come in on Mondays and Thursdays. The other 7 can come in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Anybody can come in on Fridays with approval, and anybody can come in with special approval. They just email me and say, I really need to be there. Mondays and Thursdays are my day, but I really have to be there on Tuesday. And they just have to email me, and I say, okay, there's only 2 people in the whole building that they have 6,000 square feet. Yeah, you're okay. Practice the requirements, masks and social distancing, and be safe. So everyone has access to the office except for the general public, unless by appointment. That really, I don't see, I'm trying to think of a need to change that right now. I haven't seen one. It hasn't been presented to us where we need to do that. We'll have 2 more employees. We'll be interviewing virtually. They'll probably be working virtually after we set them up here with a desk and a PC, and then with remote technology and so on and so forth. And then they'll be subject to that alternating schedule also. So that's what we're doing right now. Unless the state of emergency is lifted or Governor Baker says, okay, businesses can just open and everybody can go in and you don't have to wear masks anymore. So unless I get further, until I think the business community, the office users get further guidance from the state, it's pretty much status quo now. So we are using the facility here. Most of the people, I did issue guidance in accordance, in compliance with the state regulation to say these are the rules. And in the directive, their first few bullets, and it basically says you can use the office, you can work at home if you can justify it. And justification is if you have daycare issues, or you know, a child who's sick, a family member who is sick, or you just don't feel safe based on current health data that's out there. So most people, I would say 2/3 of the people are working at, I don't want to say that, I don't even know what the percentage is right now. I know Jason and Brad come in. I know I come in. I know the Lindas come in. I know Holly comes in. Karen Chapman is working exclusively from home. John comes in and he works at home. So we're all doing the hybrid system. Another provision in the directive is if you have an underlying health condition. So obviously that's confidential. That's a medical issue. I don't even know many people who have health conditions. A couple have volunteered. I've got a health condition. I've got to work at home. Okay, that's fine. I'm thinking about introducing face shields instead of masks because of some people's health conditions, so they can breathe. So that's the status right now. John, does that answer your question, or did you have a?
Oh, yes, it does. I know you had mentioned it before that you were going to, you know, ease that in because you could. I was just wondering how that was going. And believe me, I don't think you should push it. I think I don't think we're ready to go. Well, just the way things are going, it seems like if you rush things, you end up paying for it.
Look, I'm talking to my board of directors. Some of my staff are here. I don't see us opening the office like we used to be open before St. Patty's Day until next July.
Sure.
We've opened. We have a little bit of a creep up now in the cases, the 7-day average in Massachusetts. Not terrible. It's not going like this, right? And then the schools are going to open. The plague munchkins, the kids are going to go home, right? And just the regular sniffles they're going to bring back to mom and dad, right? Never mind COVID-19 or anything in between. And then, so we're going to have a September, October sniffle season. We're going to have a winter flu season. And then we're going to have a spring. What the heck is that going to be season? So I really, that's just my opinion for what it's worth. I'm not hoping for that. because I miss my office and I miss being here. At the same time, you know what? I see this for the foreseeable future. So if any of you have a crystal ball, I'd love to hear from you on what do you think is going to happen. But for
Right.
right now, status quo. My role, honestly, I mean, I closed this place before the governor closed us, about 5 calendar days. And I said, go home. And Jason worked 18 hours a day to get us set up a tech. I'm sure Brad helped and other techies in the office did too. But you know what? It's about preserving and protecting human lives right now. And when I'm here, they're my responsibility. When they're not here, they're my responsibility. So I'm the one that's going to sit in the witness chair in court if I screw up. So I'm trying to be as cautious as possible. I went on too much. I apologize, but that's very important to me.
No, thanks for the update.
Yeah, I think that's very important because actually, I think most of our members here are in that age group that are very vulnerable. So I
Careful
myself,
there.
I stay home. You're still a youngin', John. No. Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to the contract status reports. As I said, I will just read headings. I'll go run through this. Should take 5 minutes. If you have any questions, please speak up, stop me. I'll just be rattling on. First is the geographic information systems, Mr. Mapper and mobile apps. And then we have community related, Lunenburg Conservation Land Mapping, Winchendon Zoning Map Updates, Templeton Cemetery, Air Parcel Maintenance, Clinton Parcel Maintenance, Townsend Parcel Maintenance. Then we go on to comprehensive planning related, ADA compliant checklist survey creation. Then it's DLTA, Westminster OS update, Harvard build-out analysis, Shirley Housing Project Plan, Transportation chapter of the Sterling Master Plan. Nothing there, so we go on to transportation related. Trail data application, bike inventory, MRPC travel by tourism, roadway safety improvement project, UPWP freight corridor analysis. And then no questions there, we move on to transit related. Mart stop count. Nothing in this department, so we move on to planning and development. Comprehensive Planning Division. Federal Economic Development Administration, EDA. A little dissertation there. Then we go on to Federal Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, Montechusett Regional Brownfields Assessment Program. Then we move on to Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, EOEEA. District Local Technical Assistance, DLTA. Then we have Ashburnham, Ashby, Athol, Air, different programs that I guess are in that program. Harvard, Build Out Analysis, Hubbardston, Lancaster, Lunenburg, Petersham, Shirley, Sterling, Townsend, and Westminster. I think we're spread pretty well through the district on that one. No questions. Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, DOER. Air ADA self-evaluation and transportation plan. Healthy Aging Tough Monumentum Fund. No questions there. Spit through that. Healthy Aging Tufts Fund. Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Mass DOT, More Rides Planning Project. Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Winchendon Volunteer Drive Planning Project. Then again, Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, Affordable Access Regional Coordination, AARC. Community Development Block Grant COVID, CDBG CV Response Program. With no questions there, on to Montechusett Enterprise Center, Inc. And then transit. In the handout, there's a very pretty picture of the transit vehicles turnaround at Depot Square completed. That's the Air Depot Square pedestrian plaza. If nothing there, then we move on to transportation of that part. Massachusetts Joint Transportation Committee, MJTC. Just that they elected new officers for the MJTC. Then we have the Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. A little bit of what happened at the MPO meeting. Just for note, there will be no August MPO meeting. They voted to cancel it. And then Mass DOT announces $1 million award for Shared Streets and Space Program. That would make interesting reading. And then news release, Fitchburg DPW announces completion of Franklin Road safety improvements. And then we have the news release, and that brings us to the end of our status report. The MJTC meeting, the next meeting is September 9th, because as I said, the MPO skipped theirs and so did the MJTC. So the MPO meeting will be September 16th, 2020. And that goes through the status report. Now, do we have any new business that anybody would like to bring up to the board? Any questions, any discussions? If nothing, then as going with the
I
rules.
actually have a question. You
Shoot.
mentioned that MEC was planning, was that a tentative meeting September 30th or is that set?
No, September 30th is the date in which the bylaws state that we have to hold an annual meeting by. So the date is
Okay.
in time are to be determined. I will propose that we hold it virtually. So you know your colleagues on there. And for everyone's edification, the MEC bylaws say that the chairman of the MRPC is the president of MEC. The vice chairman of MRPC is the vice president of MEC. So I have a P and a VP. The treasurer of MRPC is the treasurer of MEC. So Laura, you'll get an invitation. We can talk earlier and I can give you some orientation to MEC if you wish. Happy to do that. And I think maybe the clerk of or secretary of MRPC is the clerk or secretary of MEC. And then there are a few other members. For example, Rebecca Bialecki, who's an alternate delegate from Athol, is on the board of directors. Bob Biaggi from Amherst, who's a former employee of the MRPC and a staunch advocate for affordable housing. He's on the MEC. And Jim Meehan from the Athol EDIC is on the MEC. So I'll be reaching out to those folks next week.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to mention also, Glenn had mentioned about the secretary of the MRPC. If I am not mistaken, we do not have a secretary. I
That is
don't think
correct.
we filled that role. So if anybody feels like they want to volunteer it, please get a hold of Glenn or Linda. Not that you do a lot, but it would be nice to have that position filled. Okay, very good. Our next meeting again, Glenn, it will be the first Thursday of September.
September 3rd, and we'll hold that meeting at 7 p.m. In about a week, I'll send out that survey to commissioners, seeing if they want to hold it during the day or the evening that day. And the majority rules. So when I get a response, you'll know if it's going to be at 7 or another time. That's it.
Okay, very good. As again, I said, we're going by small meeting rules. So I will call this meeting adjourned at 8:13 p.m. And everybody have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good night.
Hey, Glenn.
Yes.
Glenn, are you still here?
Yes, absolutely. What do you need, sir?
Laura just asked a question in the chat about all of the docs night. Did we get them all in an email? Had a crazy week. Not able to review stuff. Did all of this stuff go out in an email or?
I don't know what Linda sent out. So, but the bottom line is everything that you had to upload, I'm happy to send out to everybody. If you can navigate me or send me the link to that at some point tomorrow or something. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, deal. And I'll push it out to everybody, that everybody has it, including the lady who wants to join from Athol. So, okay,
All right.
deal. Guy, you all set?